Hi. Hi. I want to apologize for it being so dark. Um, since I put this big thing up here, a lot of the light is not getting to the camera. I already made one video and it was so my glasses were reflecting so much light that I decided to remake this. Now, I got into discussion with a person the other day. Um, when I watch a lot of prepping videos, I wish they would start talking more about hunting and things like hunting and fishing. And the person goes, well, they have hundreds of videos on prepping where they're talking about hunting. No, they really don't. Most prepping videos talk about stockpiling things like food and water, things like toilet paper, gasoline, buying a generator, things like that. Now, unfortunately, there's a difference between prepping and survivalist, or a survival situation where you have to go out and find your own food, where you have to purify your own water. Now, we're going to talk about Hurricane Ida for a minute. It has destroyed numerous homes. People have died, and a lot of people had to evacuate. Now, in a prepping situation, what do? You have a bunch of stuff stockpiled, 55-gallon drums full of water. You have a bunch of dehydrated and freeze-dried foods. Okay, that's fine. What do you do if you have to leave your home? You can't take all that with you. So, the necessities you need to take with you. You have to have a way to purify water. You have to have a way to hunt to get food. If you can't take everything with you, you have to have a way to defend yourself. You need a place to go. Let's say a wildfire happens and you have to evacuate. You can't take all your supplies with you. What do? If all you did was stockpile a bunch of food, bought a bunch of freeze-dried and dehydrated stuff, even if you take that with you, you have to have water to make the freeze-dried stuff, to rehydrate it. Now, preppers, like I say, they generally stockpile food and water. I consider myself an amateur prepper for a reason. I'm not going to go out and spend a bunch of money on dehydrated or freeze-dried foods. I would rather just buy a bunch of canned goods. I can load these up in my van and we can leave if we had to. And we have enough food stockpiled for probably, depends on how we eat, maybe a month. We have enough water to last us. If you have to have 1 gallon a day and there are 2 of us, we have, let's see, 15, 30 gallons. So we have enough water for approximately 15 days. And that's with 2 of us. So, could I load my water up in a situation where we had to leave? Absolutely. It's in 5-gallon buckets and containers, 5 to 6 gallon containers up here. We have 3 of those. Now, all 3 of these containers up here actually hold 6 gallons of water. And my 5-gallon buckets that are food safe hold 5 gallons. So if we took all our water with us, which is 30 gallons, and we took our canned goods and our box dinners and things like that, and we take a way to cook, we'd be set. The difference between preppers and survivalists, now to me there are 4 types of people. Not just 3, 4. Those that do nothing and prepare for nothing. And if something bad happens, they're praying that someone will come along to help them. You have preppers that stockpile and buy a bunch of stuff. Now, most preppers do buy items. They buy dehydrated foods, freeze-dried. They buy, whatever. Large containers to hold water in. Then you have survivalists who know generally what they can eat, what they can hunt. They know how to hunt. They know how to trap. They know how to purify water that is really gross and nasty. And they have the techniques and tools to do that. They know how to build shelters if they need to build a shelter in the middle of nowhere. Most survivalists have a backpack that they grab on the way out. If they have to leave, it usually has things like a sleeping bag, maybe a tarp, some baling wire or baling twine, paracord, things like that, a knife, a way to hunt, a way to fish, things like that. But most survivalists know the general area, even if they have to leave but don't have to go 100 miles, 200 miles away, they generally know the area. They know what they can eat and what they can't. Then you have the type of people I call homesteaders. Now, a lot of these people live off grid. They do have things like solar, water collection, rain barrels. They may have a hand-dug well to get water from. But even they know that they, a lot of times, will have to purify that water before they drink it. They also have the knowledge of things like root cellars and growing their own vegetables or fruits. They have the knowledge of canning, where you put your food in glass jars with the lids and then you can it up and you put it away. We're going to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of each one of these. First, prepping. Prepping will cost you a fortune. And if you have to leave, say you're forced to evacuate your home because of a fire or a flood, all your supplies are left behind. All that money for nothing. If you have 55-gallon barrels full of water, to put that water in the back of your truck or tow that water on a trailer, you're basically going to need a forklift to load those with. Most people don't have a forklift. Most people don't have something heavy enough to lug a bunch of water around because they're going to be taking other important things with them. When you have a survivalist, they can take the bare minimum of what they can collect and live off of that. They know how to hunt, fish, trap. Most preppers don't know how to hunt. They don't know how to trap. You need to have a little bit of knowledge of each one of these groups, except for the do nothing group. Give me a sec. Now, preppers will spend a lot of money on things like these so-called solar generators. They'll tell you buy one of these. Can you take it with you? Sure. If you don't have a way to charge it, you spend a lot of money for nothing. A lot of preppers will have solar panels, but you're not going to take those with you in an emergency situation where you have to leave. Survivalists need the bare minimum. Homesteaders, a lot of homesteaders, who I call homesteaders, will have solar. They will have water barrels, rain collection. They'll have stuff put back, same as preppers. A lot of these things intertwine with a lot of other groups. Some preppers will can, jar their own food, but they generally don't grow their own food. Most preppers will buy stuff from the store and can it. Most homesteaders will grow their own food. Homesteaders also understand the basics of things like a root cellar. A lot of preppers don't understand that. A survivalist generally understands things like a root cellar to help keep their food good longer. You know, when it comes down to what you need, you have to decide that. Preppers stockpile food, water, toilet paper. They generally have a generator with a bunch of gas stockpiled. The thing is, gasoline generally only stays good for about a year. We're going to talk about Hurricane Ida. I believe that's the last hurricane that hit Louisiana, and it went up. New York is flooded because of that. If you live in a situation like down south in Louisiana, you have more things to worry about than just the floodwaters, just the winds. If you walk outside and there's water 3-4 feet up, and you see what looks like a giant oil slick floating on top of that water, you avoid it. And you're going, why? It's just oil. You know, big deal. No. In the South especially, there are fire ants. These ants, bunched together, make like a raft and float on top of the water. If you've ever been bit by one fire ant, you know what it's like. But if you're bit by hundreds, you're in trouble. Excuse me. You have things like alligators. But in Florida and other places, you also have alligators. So let's say your prepping supplies are out in your garage, and your garage is 100 feet away from your house. And there's 3 to 4 feet of water. You have to go from your house to that garage, get in that garage to get your supplies. Let's say your items are in your basement. Your basement's probably going to be flooded. Water storage does you no good unless you can get to it. Food storage does you no good unless you can get to it. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up, I'm not saying you're going to have an alligator in your basement. You have other things to worry about. If you are on a coastal region, you have to worry about other things. You have to worry about sharks. And you're going, oh, please, it's, you know, we're up here where we have some fresh water. It may mix with the salt water. The bull shark can live in fresh water. There are some things that you won't see that's in that water that can really mess you up. If you live in the South, you do know about water moccasins. They're snakes. They live in the water. They can really get you good. You have spiders, you have snakes, alligators, and even sharks in some places. Now let's say you have all this food and water. You're a prepper. You have to evacuate. Let's say you live in California, where a wildfire is coming towards your house, and you have to evacuate. Having 500 gallons of water stockpiled and $10,000 in freeze-dried foods is not going to help you. You can't take it with you a survivalist, they can take the bare minimum. They can take a knife, sleeping bag, and maybe something to cover themselves with, some paracord, a compass, maybe some fishing equipment, and a way to hunt. They generally know what they can and can't eat. They can look over there, and if there's a mushroom there, they can generally tell you, okay, if I eat that, it's going to kill me. Over here is a flower that I can eat. Or this berry over here, I can eat, but if I eat too many of them, it's going to give me the runs. You need to learn certain skills. Being a prepper's fine. If you have the money for it, go for it. But plan on what happens if you have to leave. Do you know how to purify your own water? Do you know how to catch your own water? Do you know how to trap an animal or hunt? Do you have the equipment to hunt? As far as homesteaders, a lot of these people who I call homesteaders do live off grid. They do catch their own rainwater, or they have a hand dug well that they get water out of that they still purify. They understand root cellars. They keep a lot of their food in a root cellar or in a dark pantry. But even then, there's a cost. You have to have certain things such as canning jars, lids, a pressure cooker, basically a canning cooker, to be able to can, to jar up your food. That's extra money. You know, if you are planning on any type of prepping, take some from the prepping, some from the survivalist, and some from what I call the homesteaders. Even if you have to watch videos on YouTube and learn how to trap something. I don't care if it's a skunk. If you are hungry, you're going to eat that skunk. I mean, you don't want to get to the point where your next door neighbor starts looking like a pork chop. If you're at that point, well, something's seriously wrong. Do not rely on other people to come and save you. Even emergency personnel cannot be everywhere at once. If you live out in the country and you get hit with a hurricane, there's going to be trees down, electrical poles, there's going to be roads washed out. Don't expect them to show up in the first few days, let alone it could be 2-3 weeks, if they ever show up at all. Learn some basic knowledge about where you're at. Learn what kinds of things where you're at that you can eat to survive. Learn how to trap. Have some way to hunt. If you live near water, have some way to fish. Remember, there's all kinds of things out there that will eat you or attack you. I live in Montana. We have bears. We have rattlesnakes. I don't have to worry about a lot of things here that people in the South worry about, like alligators and sharks. But even here, we have animals that will attack us. Take the knowledge you need to take from each one of these groups. In a really bad situation, what do you need? You need food, water, and shelter. You don't need to charge your cell phone. I mean, honestly, if a really bad situation hit, oh, I'd be great. Because all these stupid liberals and all these millennials that can't live without their phones, that aren't going to work anyway, would pay me to charge their phones. I'll charge you a can of food to charge your phone. They're dumb enough to do it. A prepper will prep toilet paper. A survivalist will go out there and find the nearest leaf to wipe with. A prepper, well, we have to have water so we can flush our toilets. Or we have to have a bucket with a bunch of trash bags in it to go to the bathroom in. A survivalist, I'll go dig a hole in the backyard. Or in the woods. You know, it's up to you. I don't tell you to buy anything. I tell you, think about your situation or what may you come across. What may happen to you. Take a little bit of knowledge. Learn as much as you can, though. But take some knowledge from each one of these groups, even the preppers. It's good to have water put back and food put back. The survivalist. It's good to know how to go out there and hunt, trap, and fish. The homesteaders. It's good to know how to catch your own water and grow your own food. Take knowledge from each one of these groups. There are a lot of people that make videos on YouTube that do not get sponsored, do not try to sell you crap. And if you have a question, if you watch one of their videos, and if you have a question, I don't care if the video was uploaded 3-4 years ago. If you have a question about what they're doing, ask them. A lot of people will tell you, this is what I do, this is how I do it, this is how I store my food. A lot of people will answer questions. Some won't because they're just jerks, or they just don't have internet anymore. The people trying to sell you crap, their response is going to be, oh, buy this. There is a huge difference between prepping and survival. Prepping is you're getting ready for something to happen, but if you have to leave your supplies, you're screwed. Survivalist. Most survivalists do not have a stockpile of food and water. They know they can go out there and hunt or trap something and survive. They know if they can go out there and eat bugs if they have to. They know what plants they can eat and what they avoid. Then you have homesteaders. I say homesteaders. I would classify these types of people between prepping and survivalist. They know how to get water or collect water. They know how to dig a well. They know how to use a root cellar. They generally have their own animals that they raise and slaughter. They generally grow their own food. Take knowledge from each one of these groups. And if you have a question, ask them. Is it a good idea to have someone who hunt and fish? Definitely. Is it a good idea to have some canned food put back and some water put back? You bet. Is it a good idea to spend $5,000 on dehydrated or freeze-dried stuff? No. Here's the thing, freeze-dried, you have to add water. So basically, you buy a bunch of freeze-dried stuff, okay? And you have, I don't know, 1,000 pouches of this stuff. What are you going to do if you don't have access to water? You have to add water to that. What are you going to do if your water is limited? Are you going to waste your water putting it in that freeze-dried food? Or are you going to use your water for drinking and surviving and just being hungry? You can survive weeks without food, only days without water. Are you going to waste your water? Absolutely not. If you watched a video of somebody in your area, contact them. If they have a garden, say, hey, you know, I live in this area. What do you recommend I plant? How do you recommend I take care of this on low cost? You know, take information from all these groups. Don't just rely on one. You can have all the prepping supplies in the world, but if you have to leave your home, all your supplies get left behind. You can know how to survive on everything outside, but if it doesn't rain for 2-3 weeks and a lot of things are dying or dead, you have no way to survive if you have no food or water. A survivalist can generally survive definitely for a short amount of time. If you're on a person that's at like a homestead, you know when to plant your vegetables. You know when to harvest them. Preppers aren't going to know that. Survivalists generally won't know that. Learn from each group. Learn what you need to learn. Get what you need to get for you to survive. Think about what you need. If you live in the middle of a city, in an apartment on the 4th floor, you're generally not going to grow your own vegetables. You're not going to plant a fruit tree. Because even if you did outside somewhere, everybody else will be getting it once it starts to grow. Think about where you live. Think about your situation. Think about what may hurt you. Like I said, down south, you can have everything from sharks to alligators to snakes, ants, even spiders. Think about that. Think about what happens if I have to leave my supplies behind. Do I have a way to get food for me and my family? And I'm sorry, most kids, even most adults, if they're starving, they'll eat the dog. You know, I apologize for a lot of things in my videos. Especially saying I'm fixing to go and then I ramble on. I'm not apologizing. Only you can determine what you need. Only you know the area you live in. Only you can go outside and go, is this edible? Only you can look that up for your area. Only you can determine, well, gee, how am I going to get water if the flood, the water's contaminated, it's gross, it's nasty. How can I purify this and clean it so I can drink this? Only you can do that for where you live and your own situation, your personal situation. A hurricane is in a flood are different than a fire. It's different from a blizzard. Once again, take stock of the experts out there. An expert's not going to try to sell you something. An expert may give you advice on, hey, this is what I use and this is why I think this is a good idea, but they're not going to go, oh yeah, I have it in my store. But to the person that said, preppers talk about hunting, no, they don't. Preppers talk about preparing by buying a bunch of stuff, stockpiling a bunch of stuff, and it's usually only where they live. A survivalist talks about hunting, trapping, fishing, things like that. It's rare for a prepper to bring up fishing, let alone hunting, because they don't plan on leaving. And if they're forced to leave, they're forced to leave their supplies behind. I feel bad for everyone that's going through all this stuff with this last hurricane, and I hope that people can get through it. I've been through hurricanes. I lived in the South for years. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy to survive. So, what do you do? That's for you to decide. All I can do is tell you what we bought and why. I don't tell you to run out and buy something. Is it a good idea to have some way to hunt? Absolutely. Because here's the thing. If an animal comes in your yard, I don't care what animal it is, do you have a way to stop that? Or do you have a way to catch it? Or do you have a way to kill it? If you have to find food, do you have a way to kill that animal? Or that snake? Or whatever it is? Think about what you need. And don't just think about what you need at home. Think about what you need if you have to leave. Think about what's important to you, what you need to survive. Don't just pick one group to be in. If you're a prepper, great, fine. Also think about the tools a survivalist has, and they can teach you. What happens if your prepping supplies run out? What happens in a really bad situation? Literally bad. Even a hurricane. Let's say your neighbor knows you stockpiled all this stuff. That means other people know you stockpiled all this stuff. You don't think they're coming to your house in a bad situation? They'll come and take your stuff. So what happens if you are forced out of your own home? Or if your house gets completely flooded? Or if your house is unsafe? You have to leave it. All I can tell you, it's up to you. But people trying to sell you stuff are not looking out for your best interest. They're looking out for theirs. Having a generator, is fine, great. Having gas and fuel, fine, great. Even if your gas cans stay sealed in a flood, what happens if water gets into your generator? Do you have a way to repair that or fix it? Most likely, no. What happens if you have solar and then your panels get damaged or your batteries get shorted out? What are you going to do then? What happens if you have no way to cook? What happens if you haven't prepared? If you don't have a barbecue pit or a stove that runs off of, propane? Natural gas will end up getting shut down in a lot of situations. So your stove's not going to work. What happens if you don't have a little burner stove with propane or butane? No way to cook unless you go outside and start a fire. Now what happens if you live right now and your entire yard is 3 feet underwater? You're not going to go outside and start a fire. What happens if you have to leave your home? All those supplies you stockpiled are going to be left behind. You can't take all that stuff with you. Take the stuff with you you need to survive. A way to purify water, a way to collect water, a way to cook, some food, a way to hunt, a way to fish if you live anywhere near water. Take some way to protect yourself. By the time you get back home, all that money in your prepping supplies may either be damaged or gone. Okay, I'm going. The video's kind of long. Make up your own mind. Decide what's right for you. Watch some videos on trapping. Practice that. Watch some videos on hunting and survival. Not just prepping. Watch other videos on homesteading. How these people have dug their wells. How they made their root cellars. If you have questions, ask them. A lot of times they will answer you without trying to sell you something. Remember, those that are trying to sell something don't give a damn about you. They're out for themselves. Alright, I'm going. Everyone stay safe. Everyone have a good day. Bye.